Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our study of the Yoga Sutras. In this session, we will continue our discussion on what are those fivefold chitta vrittis that Patanjali mentions. In the previous video, we saw the first of the five, which is pramana, correct knowledge. And now from sutras 8 through 11, we are going to see the rest of the four sutras. So we have quite a lot coming today in our session. So let's see it. So this is Sutra number 8, which says, Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtham. So this is talking about the second of the chitta vrittis, which is viparyaya, or misconception, or incorrect knowledge. So what does he, and see, we use the term incorrect knowledge, but everything needs a very specific definition. And Patanjali is going to give us a very accurate understanding here. He says, Viparyaya, misconception is mithya jnanam, false or illusory knowledge, atadrupa pratishtham, right? So something that is based on, so if you see the translation, misconception or incorrect knowledge occurs when knowledge is not based upon its true form, right? So this is the very technical understanding of what incorrect knowledge or viparyaya is. So let's see the recitation of the sutra. Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtham. Right? So this is how he defines viparyaya, or incorrect knowledge. If you remember, what was correct knowledge? We said it has to be based on the three sources: direct perception, logical inference, or on scriptural testimony. Now, incorrect knowledge is something that is based on something which is not on its true form, right? Now, it's very interesting to note the next sutra, where he is now going to define a third kind of a vritti, which creates an experience. Just like how correct perception and incorrect perception creates an experience for us, there is a third kind, which is imagination. That is also another kind of chitta vritti. What does that? How is that defined? How is imagination defined? He says vikalpa, or imagination. He says shabda jnana. Shabda, words, knowledge is jnana. So shabda jnana is verbal knowledge. Anupati, which is arising from vastu shunya. Vastu here means something objective, something real. Shunya means zero, devoid of, right? So which means when words devoid of substance, vastu shunya is imagination. Again, see how nicely Patanjali defines. We use the word imagination ordinarily, but what exactly do we mean by imagination? When you describe something which lacks substance, the basis of those words is not on something factual, but it is devoid of some substance. It is just, as we say, you just cooked up a story. You're just imagining things. That is what technically vikalpa, or imagination, is described as. So let's see the recitation of this sutra. Shabda jnananupati vastu shunyo vikalpaha. Right? So this is how imagination is described. So when you see these two sutras together, which is incorrect knowledge and imagination, they may seem little confusing, right? Because incorrect knowledge, it is described, it occurs when knowledge is not based on some true form, whereas imagination is said when the words, the basis of those words is not having any factual substance. So to compare these three kinds of vrittis that we discussed so far, I'll present to you in a very small table, which will make things very clear. So the first, in Sutra number 7, we saw correct knowledge. So if I were to qualify it in terms of the knowledge is based on an object and the nature of that object and the nature of the observation. If you were to make a table like this, so you will see correct knowledge, pramana, the object is real and your observation is also very accurate. Whereas in incorrect knowledge, there, viparyaya, the object is real, but you are not observing it properly. The famous example that is given like the six blind people, they are trying to figure out what an elephant is. Somebody looks at the elephant. The object is real, but one person who's holding the legs says, oh, elephant is like a big pillar. Somebody who's holding the tail says, oh, elephant is like a snake. Somebody is holding the trunk says, oh, elephant is like a long pipe. So their observations are inaccurate, though the object elephant factually exists. That is what incorrect knowledge means. Imagination, on the contrary, the object itself is unreal, but an unreal object you are observing accurately and making your analysis. Like the example I gave last time as well, like a mirage. There is no mirage. Factually, there is no water in a desert. It is unreal, but your observation is very accurate, right? And that is how we imagine things. And this, I'm sure we all have experienced this in our own life, where many times we imagine certain things, something which is not there, about people, situations, or even things. We imagine a lot. And though our imagination is unreal, our observation seems to be very accurate. And we make our opinions based on those accurate observations of unreal situations, objects, or people, like that. So these are three important chitta vrittis that we saw. Now we will see the next two vrittis. And this is an interesting one, where Patanjali is describing sleep. Right now, this is a very interesting way how he defines sleep. Let's see how he says. Abhava pratyalambana vrittihi nidra. Abhava means absence of something. Pratyaya is a very interesting word which we will revisit later on in the book again. Pratyaya means like a mental notion of something, right? Like, for example, when I say rose, immediately for you, that rose has a notion for you. It could be either an image of a rose, it could be an experience of the smell of the rose, or perhaps it could just be some memory connected to the rose in the form of maybe in your childhood home you had a rose garden, and maybe one day while trying to pluck a rose you accidentally a thorn pricked you on your finger. So that whole experience, right? So moment we think of anything, or when we try to interact with something, we are always creating some notions in our head. That is what is called as a pratyaya. Now this mental notions are going to be important for us later on when we understand the science of meditation. But in this case, Patanjali is defining sleep, saying that pratyaya notion, pratyaya alambana, this notional support, vrittihi. So in the absence of that kind of pratyaya alambana, what happens is called sleep. Sleep is the state of the mind which is based on the non-deliberate absence of thoughts. Now, I had to modify that meaning. I had to add some words to give more complete understanding. Now, why this complicated description here? Let's go back to our foundational sutra, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, right? Where the perfection of yoga, we said, is a state where the mind is not experiencing any thoughts. And if you think about it, do I think during my sleep? There are no thoughts during my sleep. So somebody may say, oh, look, I have attained the perfection of yoga. I have figured out the secret to yogic success. What is that? Just go to sleep, right? No, this is where Patanjali is very objectively clear. In the case of sleep, it is a non-deliberate absence of thoughts. You are not actually planning to have absence of thoughts. It just so happens. Whereas during meditation, especially during the stage of dhyana, dharana and dhyana, these are the later stages of Ashtanga practice. In that stage, there is no conscious effort, there is a conscious effort being put to bring the mind to a very stable state. Unlike in sleep, it just happens. Sleep, in fact, is a very unconscious state. In that sense, it is very tamasic in nature. It is very ignorant in nature. And this is what differentiates sleep from samadhi. And So now somebody may ask, okay, we are still discussing about chitta vrittis, and we said these vrittis are supposed to create an impression. Does sleep create an impression? Right? And one of the classical acharyas, he comments that, look, when we sleep, it may seem like we are not creating any impressions, but when we wake up, we do remember the quality of our sleep, right? So, we tell, oh, I had a good sleep, oh, I had a very disturbed sleep. That even, in fact, even sleep also is under the influence of different gunas. If you have a sattvic sleep, it means that, when you wake up, you feel more refreshed and energetic. If you have a very rajasic sleep, you have a lot of dreams, you have a lot of disturbance. If you have a tamasic sleep, then after you wake up, you feel even more tired than you were before you went to sleep, right? So even the sleep also comes to the category of different gunas, right? But irrespective of that, when you wake up, you do have a memory, an impression of that sleep, right? And this is where the classical acharyas, they point out that if indeed the chitta goes into a blank state, into a calm state, why is it that when the Purusha wakes up, when the soul, so-called, it comes out of this sleep state, why is it that we carry those experiences of sleep? It shows that actually the mind, the chitta, has not gone into a complete passive, calm state during sleep. It is also creating an impression even during the sleep stage, right? And this is very important for us to understand, what that chitta vritti, what that samadhi eventually Patanjali is going to talk about, right? We're going to get a glimpse of that by understanding its difference between sleep. So sleep, as passive and calm as it may sound, it is still not like the calmness we are trying to talk about in the state of samadhi. And that is what happens for a very advanced yogi. They may go into a state of samadhi for hours together, but when they come out of samadhi, for them, it may seem like only a few minutes have passed. Whereas when we come out of sleep, we have memory of sleep. Oh, I slept for so long, right? And definitely when you sleep for such a long time, you will actually know, that, oh, I at least spent 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. At least some conception of time is there. Whereas in samadhi, that conception of time is also missing, right? These are the inner secrets that Patanjali is revealing to us by these very, very specific technical definitions of the chitta vrittis. And finally, he defines the last vritti, which is memory. Memory is another function of the chitta which creates an impression. And how does he define memory? He says, Anubhuta Vishaya Asamproshaho Smritihi. So Anubhuti means an experience of what? Vishaya, of some object. So when an experience of an object is asamproshaha, means that when it is retained, you are not allowing it to just slip away. Such thing is called as smriti or memory, right? So let us see the recitation. Anubhuta Vishaya Samproshaha Smritihi. So let's see the translation now. Not letting experiences slip away is called memory. So what happens with the first 4 chitta vrittis we saw, right? Which is basically correct perception or correct knowledge, incorrect knowledge, imagination, and sleep. All these 4, they get deposited in the chitta in the form of memory, right? And another very interesting thing to note, what exactly is memory? How does the memory function work? Memory is not storage of information, but memory is storage of an experience, right? This is very, very important for us if you want to refine our learning systems, right? Today, any form of learning involves remembrance, right? But many times, especially in our modern educational systems, we are taught that to remember means to memorize some information. Knowledge is all about collection of some information. But really, if you want to understand how the human mind works, and especially the storage function, the memory function, how it works, it does not remember any information. It remembers an experience centered around that information. And the best way to access this smriti is when you actually look into the phenomena of dreams. what happens during dreams is these stored memories, they come out, right? Of course, it is not necessary that everything that comes out in dreams is literally the memory. If you remember, we also have the imagination function, right? Sometimes that vikalpa or imagination combines with the memory function and it creates a totally random dream, right? But irrespective of the exact nature of the dream, the point that we understand is that this memory function is a very powerful and deep function. We are not even talking about conscious memories here. Memory can also be at a subconscious plane. And the language of the subconscious mind is experiences. Many times we misunderstand the language of conscious mind with the language of subconscious mind. Language of the conscious mind is very much of information and data, and that's what we mainly train ourselves in. But the language or the way subconscious memories are stored is through experiences, and not letting that experience slip away is how Patanjali is defining smriti. And that is also another impression. That is also an a vritti that we deal with at the chitta level. So these are the 5 vrittis, so precisely scientifically defined by Patanjali. And so what are those 5? Very quickly recalling them. Pramana, which is correct knowledge. Viparyaya, which is incorrect knowledge. Vikalpa, which is imagination. Nidra, sleep. And smriti, memory. So these are the 5 vrittis that we are trying to deal with. And we are trying to calm the influence of these vrittis. Only when you calm these vrittis and the chitta comes to a state of nirodha. But how do I do that? What is that yogic process? That is going to be the theme of the next section of this book. Stay tuned, and we are looking forward to your presence in more of these sessions. And together, let us explore this wonderful science of the human mind as expounded by the great sage Patanjali. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.